Okay, that was a long reaction for the previous one there, like with the horny snake cowboy guy. That was a little long. So I think I think I'll pick up the pace a little bit and be a little bit quicker about it. So let's say we kick this one out, like 22 minutes of animation. Let's say it takes 10, 15 minutes to talk about it. Like, well, it's like 45 minutes to an hour, right? Like, yeah, like I can do that. That's a thing I can do. You don't know me. Of course I can do that. I am capable of restraining myself. I am the picture of self-control, brevity, and like just only using exactly the words which are necessary to convey the specific thing which I am saying at any given point in time specifically, right? I am brevity is the soul of wit, and I am witty as hell. Okay, so obviously I've seen the comments that people have been leaving about how episode 6, like the episode 6 one is going to be a long one. I can't wait for you to get to episode 6. So apparently it's also the longest episode so far, but apparently this one also has the most to talk about, which is curious and ominous given that it's called Truth Seekers, which, like, what truths are we seeking? Like, is this going to be like a huge revelation thing, a bunch of world building, a bunch of cosmology nonsense? Certainly Luna seems to be a little bit different in the thumbnail here. She's on all fours, looking distinctly more hound-like than she usually is. Also bigger, quite large, in fact. Which, is that a hellhound power? Like, they can can transform into a human disguise, but also she can shift into like a feral form for doing violence on people and getting real mad at them. Not 100% sure. Certainly violence seems to be like, well, it's always a theme in Helluva Boss, isn't it? But like Moxie with her axe, I'm gonna get made fun of in the comments again. Millie with her axe. Moxie with his guns. Blitz in a bit of a combat pose. Not really with his usual sort of cheerful frame of mind. And then we have like these... of course, the thumbnail's a little bit cropped the way that I'm looking at it here, but we have these things sort of poking into the space of the thing, which seems like something that's maybe encroaching on the gang. Certainly the composition, like, it's doing the job of, like, sort of hemming them in and constraining them, boxing them into this space where Blitz seems to be taking a protective stance over his employees / found family, which is that... Are we going to get a little bit more into Blitz giving a shit about his people, even though he very loudly pretends not to? Because that would be interesting. Certainly he has shown a genuine affection and protectiveness towards Luna, so... Is he going to extend that to his little imp buddies as well in this one? Are we going to get a little sweetness? Are we going to get a little niceness? Are we going to get, he has a heart. He's a sweet boy after all underneath. He's a soft boy underneath it all. Aw. Are we going to get that? Or are we going to, like, seem like we're going to get that, and then we're going to undercut it with a bunch of swear words and dick jokes? I guess there's a way to find out, which is to click the button. Okay.
Right there. This was the first sighting.
Okay, so it's conspiracy theories. So because it's a cavalcade of stuff they've been getting up to in the other episodes, and like, oh, this is the first sighting, so these are going to be like, is it like conspiracy theorists, or is it going to be like FBI people, like government shady people? Like, they seem to be wearing suit jackets. Who are like, oh, these are communist demons from space Russia or whatever, or what's going on. So those will be the truth seekers then. These are the people who are trying to find out the truth, I suppose. Okay.
Definitely from hell.
They're from hell, okay.
They must use this dark magic to cross over into our world. And they seem to be killing specifically targeted people. But why?
They always attack at random, all over the country.
Is he doing a... No, it's not a John F. Kennedy, but that's a hell of an accent on that dude. What's with the triangle D emblem on their collars there? That would be the... Because that's a unifying symbol between the two of them. So that would be their organization or their thing that they belong to. And they're wearing the same... Like, they're definitely dressed like G-men, right? Like, they're dressed like they're government agents of some kind. But this seems a little dinky to be like a government surveillance office, so...
There's no way to predict where they'll show up next.
Ah, well, that's convenient.
Yeah. Remember, I mean, that's a way to skip. Like we don't have to have an investigation phase. Like, that's the way to skip it. Blitz is just a dipshit who's gonna show up anyway.
We can't be seen.
Pardon my words, sir, but you're currently being the loudest.
I said shush your dick-sucking lips, Moxie.
Oh, condom used. Ugh. Huh, is it just me or is there something about the line quality here? I'm seeing some aliasing in the line work that I don't usually see. Hang on. What if I full screen it? What if I... Is that because of the premium bitrate thing is Nope. Huh. Well, that's unusual. Yeah, this seems to be present at all the qualities. That aliasing there, that stair-stepping on the line work in the background, like, that's also present in the line work on, like, Blitz. Did they have some sort of export problem? Because, like, it's really kind of making some of the artwork crinkly in a way that it usually isn't. Huh.
Luna, close it!
Wait, no!
Moxie!
I smell colors.
Back off, you tuxedo-wearing fucks!
I'd like to see the suits at corporate corners losers now. That was pretty badass.
Super badass.
Really should have fired the gun at them at some point, Blitz, but okay. So, okay, you remember the thing I've said about, like, tone and this fucking show? Yeah, no, yeah. Okay, tone, yeah, we're whiplashing once more in tone. All of a sudden we have... Okay, yeah, like, this got real severe quite quickly, didn't it?
Shit! Shit, shit, shit! Ah!
You okay there?
What are you doing sitting there? The boys are in trouble! Open it again!
Blitz was using a total of 0 euphemisms, innuendos, or swears. That means it was serious, which means I don't open it until...
Open the fucking portal now! They aren't here!
It smells like they went this way. Come on, let's find the dumbass twins.
Finally awake, huh, little fella? Your partner has been for a while now.
Look, shitbag, it takes a lot to keep me down, all right? I took a fuck ton of tranquilizers in the college I dropped out of. Also, I've been strapped nipple first to a car battery, so oh, okay.
Tell us, demon scum. Who do you work for? Satan?
How did you get to our world from the afterlife?
Why are yous killing humans?
When did you show up here?
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there, bitch. First of all, we just woke up from a very nasty shock, and I'm still feeling fucking woozy, so I'm gonna request you fetch us some coffee before we get into this. I mean, everyone gets coffee in shitty movies with scenes like this, am I right? I want something iced, bitch, Mox.
I'll have a Neapolitan cappuccino, more cappa than chino. Make sure it's got no more than 4 ounces of milk. The beans won't have the right texture otherwise. And make sure they spell my name correctly on the cup. They always put Foxy or Roxy. I hate that. If you can't handle that, I'll have a traditional misto. Please use soy milk with 2 blonde shots, affogato, and ristretto. I'd also love 3 vanilla pumps at the very bottom.
That, I like that. The little pointy with the leg. That's a cute little gesture.
I'd also love 3 vanilla pumps at the very bottom.
I do like that Blitz sort of unintentionally is like, Mox, info dump at them.
bottom, then add the coffee after, then add...
Enough! We aren't getting his coffee.
Wow, I was getting massive douche chills just there, Mox. Congrats.
If we have to, we are willing to resort to torture methods to get answers out of you nasty hell beasts.
When you say torture, do you mean physical or psychological? Physical seems counterproductive. We would likely tell you anything if it meant an end to the pain. And you would have no way of knowing what was true.
Or we might like it too much, and then you got a whole new thing to deal with.
What do you mean by that?
Ah, you're stupid, huh? I could work with stupid, daddy-likey dummy.
Good one, sir. Daddy.
You better stop laughing at us!
Yeah! You are the ones at our mercy.
It's hard to resist. I'm really sorry. I mean, considering your approach thus far, you've had us tied here for what, hours? And you haven't even had us confirm what exactly we are.
What are you?
I'm a Virgo.
Oh!
Okay, yeah, so we're... okay, yeah, fine. So... Remember in the Cherub episode when I talked about like this, like sort of the conflict between having interiority and simply just the writer sort of jerking off a little bit, by sort of grinding some, like this feels a little bit like we're having a wouldn't it be cool if kind of volley, right? Like if in an interrogation scenario, what are all the cool funny shit that my cool funny characters could say, like to really sort of like shit on the G-men and like fuck with the authority figures, like what's all the cool shit. Like it feels a little bit like we're sort of taking a little stroll down self-indulgence avenue here with this one. That's also fine. I'm not saying that necessarily as a criticism, just in terms of like, I'm sort of sitting here like, okay, we've had the jokes, we've established that these two are dumbasses, we've established that you two don't feel threatened or in any kind of danger. We can move on now. Rather than sort of spend any more time, and probably they will in just a second, but rather than spend like all of this time like pointing out that our two demons are sort of like, oh, you two are putzes, you're idiots, you're not doing this right, you're not good at torture, ha 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 ha. There's a line where you can cross where that just becomes sort of obnoxiously self-satisfied and kind of smug. It's coming up on it. It's not there yet, but I can feel it coming, and if the scene doesn't move on like soon, it's gonna become become annoying to me.
Smart guy, huh?
One more quip out of you and we'll shut you up.
Oh, getting kinky!
We aren't playing any of Vile Demon Kinks.
I mean, that's what it sounded like back there, you sickos.
Yeah, no, they crossed it. They're over it. Okay, Jesus. Because, like, it's also a thing about the villains, right? Like, the villains are like, we'll torture you, we'll hurt. Like, okay, but, like, they've made that threat, like, 4 times now, and, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Please don't give them ideas, sir.
Why not? I know the shit you're into.
Stop! We are not getting kinky with you.
Calm down, one. Don't let these monsters get to you.
Hey, aren't we gonna get our phone call, bitch?
Well, that entirely depends. Who are you gonna call?
Your fat mom, taking her for a fat time.
Nice try, demon. His fat mom is dead.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah, no, that scene needed to be like 30 to 45 seconds shorter at least, because that, oh my god, that really just, yeah, no, that needed an editing pass. But I guess they're from the DHORKS organization, dorks. Ha 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 ha. Okay. This is again, we're back to sort of the Newgrounds sensibility of like some very easy jokes and some characters like they have more interiority than the cherubs, right? Like in the sense that we understood that they've been tracking the imps for a bunch of time, and clearly these two dipshits in particular have a thing about like, this has been our weird conspiracy theory that we've been chasing and no one's been believing in us. And the higher-ups have been calling us stupid, so our motivation for doing this is that, like, we want to prove that we were right about the thing. And, like, those 30 to 45 seconds of the characters just volleying back and forth in the fucking interrogation room, some of that time could have maybe been spent sort of building out the characterization of our villains so that I'm capable of, like, giving a shit about them at this point. There's still time to do that. We're not that far into the episode, I know. but it is one of those things like my editor brain is sort of sitting there going like, you could have cut like a lot of that and spent the time on something else. Why do they have
This
glaives?
where they ended up?
I think so. Fuck, this looks intense. How are we gonna get in?
Lift me up to that vent.
Ooh, I like that. Hang on.
Fuck, this looks intense.
Also, those guys just can't hear for shit. Those are some Skyrim-ass guards.
How are we gonna get in?
Lift me up to that vent.
Give me a look at that little scurry. Whoop. Zip. Oh, that was a lovely little piece of animation. Like, look at the way the tail sort of aids in like the swoop of how she's moving, like those S curves that are rolling around. Right? Like the tail really smooths the action the way that it's like goes here, then it goes there, continues that into there, and then whoop, continues that into there, and then yeah, that's a really nice little scurry climbing motion. Again, when you throw a vent on the ground like that, that's loud. What the fuck? What's in these guys' earpieces?
Intense. How are we gonna get in?
Lift me up to that vent.
No lock on that door? Jesus. Oh, we're killing some fuckers. Okay, cool. Wait, hang on. No, hang on. I need to make... Okay, that's why they have glaives. Because... Oh my god, right. Because they're dorks. They're mall ninjas. Oh my god. They're mall ninjas. Look at these motherfuckers with fucking katanas. Oh my good god. I will also say, the visual style in this episode looks notably different than it has in the other ones. Like, not just in terms of, like, the thing I noted with like, the aliasing on the line work, also the way that hands are handled. Like, you get a lot of these big, chunky wedge hands. I'm thinking especially of in the, very intro where they're just doing hands, right?
They must use this dark magic to cross over.
Like, here we have, like, some reasonably sort of, like, these are fairly well-animated hands because, like, the character is emoting through their gesture with their fingers, right?
Our world, and they seem to be killing specifically targeted people. But why?
They always attack at random. Oh!
But then also you get a lot of these rather chunky, right, sausage hands.
Over the country, there's no way to...
Right, like that. Which is like... That, okay, that maybe needed a little line for the palm there.
Predict where they'll show up next.
And then, like, a fist that's drawn like this, right? Like this odd, lumpy trapezoid, right? And that's not really been quite the style... Actually, before I go off on that, let me just go back and check on Spring Break here.
And just going...
Yeah, like... Right? You see the way the hands are handled here? Luna also looks different. Like, she's drawn differently in Truth Seekers than she is here in her human form. Yeah, there's a distinctly different style, I think, in Truth Seekers relative to... Like, I don't think she's off-model in Truth Seekers necessarily, but... It definitely feels like... Like, presumably, I don't know exactly how these seasons are produced. Like, again, it's the production situation behind the scenes. What I would imagine is that, like, they are not just working on one episode at a time, that, like, because, you know, when the key animators and the script, and, like, while the people working on the script are writing down the script, there's not really that much for the artists to do, right? So the people writing the script are probably ahead of the artists, and like some of the board artists are probably ahead of where like the in-betweeners are. Like presumably they have some sort of running, flowing, like production flow to the exact, like that sort of governs the exact way that these episodes are produced and the order in which they are produced and come out. And like, so I don't know, like maybe this episode was produced like at an earlier point. And sort of slotted in later to the season because that sort of suited the yeah, because like here Luna like looks taller, substantially more adult, I'd say, in her proportionality relative to what she looked like in Spring Breakers. So like maybe it's just like a production thing of like when exactly which parts of what, because these guys also have much more of that Flash cartoon look in the way that their proportionality, in the way that their like character design is handled. This is like much more Flash cartoon in its style, like again harkening a little bit back to that, like to that Newground style, which again is not at all bad. It's just I'm noticing that it's different. And like part of the reason why Luna looks different could also just be because she needs to be capable of doing other things in this episode, right? Like, so maybe they've made some changes to her model and her model sheet for this episode because they want her to be able to like perform certain kinds of actions that the previous version of her character design wasn't quite as capable of doing. And still, like, there's some excellent character animation going on with these oblivious motherfucking guards, like, holy shit, and some lovely smearing on that little transition out, like, zoop. So, like, I don't want to come across that I'm like talking shit about the episode. I'm just thinking about like thinking about that it's different, like noticing that it's different and thinking about why that might be. This is a really good little sneak animation. Like, I do like the touch of, like, having her lead with the foot out, and then, zoop. But, right, they're dorks. They're dork-ass motherfuckers. They're mall ninjas. They have katanas, they have glaives, they have fucking nunchucks, and, what are those called? They're the sort of ninja scythe weapon thing. Oh, I do have one criticism, which is the fucking motion blur. I hate motion blur. I don't like it. I don't like it in 2D animation like this. I really don't. I don't think it looks good. Again, a lovely little dodge. Whoop, whoop. But the motion blur, it bothers like this. When you frame by frame your way through it and you see all this fucking motion blur on the thing, is like, no, just give me the clear image so I can see what the fuck is going on, because for me, at least, it's certainly for animation like this, it depends. Like, 3D animation often benefits a lot from motion blur. 2D animation can benefit from it, but it needs to be applied better than this, because this is motion blur without any fucking direction. This is just blur, right? This is just, like, I think they just applied camera blur to this. Whereas, if you want to use motion blur effectively to, like, help communicate the motion of animation like this, you really need to apply it individually to the characters so that when Luna is rising up into the air, she has directional motion blur that follows her motion rather than whatever the fuck the directionality of this is, because that doesn't look good. I really don't like this motion blur. It's really, like, they're doing the handheld camera thing from the last episode again, right? Like, where they're sort of the camera is becoming an actor in the action. And I appreciate that. I like that. That's cool. But there doesn't need to be motion blur on this. There really doesn't need to. Like, look how the fuck the image looks, man. It's like, that doesn't help the motion read any more clearly. Right? And you can see that, like, here, we drop the motion blur, and instead we have like hand-drawn blurs and smears on the thing itself. Look how much clearer that fucking thing looks when it lands, right? When we don't do the motion blur. And now we're not doing motion blur. Now there's no motion blur anywhere. And now there is motion blur when she's like close in on the camera, which is like fine. And now we are doing motion. It's also inconsistent. I'm not super fond of that. Like, yeah, oof. That's a genuine criticism I have, is like that use of motion blur is like, because again, motion blur can work. It can help smooth transitions and like smooth out motion, especially like on quick, snappy, sudden motions. But you can't just like apply it to the whole frame like that, because that just looks like kind of an unclear mess, right? Like, come on. Again, this is also a personal thing. I have a personal strong dislike of motion blur. I just don't like how it looks, right? I have reasonable arguments also why I think motion blur doesn't work, why I think a lot of animation is often better off without motion blur, which I will hold for this, that like I don't think it's the right choice for the kind of animation that's being presented here. But I will also recognize that I have a personal bias against it. Sorry, I'm rewatching it multiple times because it's really like, because the animation that's on here, like what the characters are actually doing, I think is quite good. Yeah, axe hits him, and then again we do the thing, like the same little like swirling around the guy thing with the tail, really leading the action as she gets up, dodges the swipe, grabs the axe, Noxian guillotine. Boom. Nice.
Damn, you're pretty agile for an old lady.
I'm like 5 years older than you.
Stop insulting my mother! She's dead!
Hey, let's just leave them here until they feel like talking.
Or torture them, like you said you would. Oh my god, losers.
Don't worry, Mox. If we keep being obnoxious, they'll eventually slip up and we'll get a chance to get out. Let's just keep fucking with them until they get so frustrated they stop thinking clearly. It usually works.
So the demons want to play games, huh? Well, we could play games.
Yeah.
I'm just
Bitch
worried
juice.
about Millie.
Haha
She'll be on her way
gas.
by now.
We could play games.
Haha gas, bitch juice. Can't tell what those other two are. Truth bomb. There was a little
I'm
thing he
just worried
did.
about-
Ooh, that's nice. That's a lovely little...
Yeah.
I'm just
Like, when he's struggling and, like, pulling... Like, there. Like, really using the pointed directionality of his face and, like, the horns to really emphasize it. And then... Snap. Bonk. Snap back into place because it didn't work.
she'll be on her way by now, I'm sure.
Ugh, she'll be fine, Moxie. It would take a roided-up hippo to take down that woman when she's upset.
We've never dealt with the human government before. She's in danger.
Do you ever honestly shut up about Millie? It's always, oh, how's Millie? I can't tonight. I'm hanging with Millie. I'm so worried about Millie. And she's always 5 fucking feet away from you. It's pathetic.
That was oddly personal.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know why the fuck I just let my guts spill like that.
Could be the gas?
Sir, they're filling this room with something.
Fuck. What the hell is this?
I think it's some kind of airborne truth-telling syrup.
Oh, you just guessed that's what it is?
Well, just ask me something specific I wouldn't normally tell you.
Okay, does Millie ever peg you?
Sometimes. Wait! Ew!
We already knew that, Mox. That was pretty fucking obvious. Love the expressions here. Sometimes, like the moment, and also I do like the little thing of like the moment he thinks about her and that she does that to him, he goes all soft and gooey eyed and kind of like, oh yeah, she does. It's really nice. Wait.
Wait, ew, fuck, why that?
I knew it.
Well, your suit is tacky. Fuck, I'm sorry.
How fucking dare you? You have shitty taste in music. I'm sorry.
Shit taste? You said you liked that musical I recommended to you.
I lied. I left halfway through.
You said you loved it.
It was awful, Moxie. It was about ugly, horny cats.
It was. He said there to watch cats. That's very good. I mean, you have to lie about liking cats. If like, cause like, I'm sorry, musical theater kids. I actually really do like cats. It's one of the things that like the movie really fucked that poor show's reputation up real fucking bad. But it's actually it's a perfectly good turn your brain off and just kind of vibe with the feelings of it all show. It's just don't let Tom Hooper make movies out of musicals anymore. But the reason I'm framing through here is look at the stretching, like the real hard stretching that they're doing on their necks to allow them to emote more with their heads. And also just the way that emphasizes the the emotionality and the expressiveness of what they're saying. That's really good work there. Like that's some Earthworm Jim ass. Like, nice. Look at that. That is fantastic. Oh, these dumb babies.
Loved it.
It was awful, Moxie. It was about ugly, horny cats. Oh, God, Moxie. I've said so many lies to you.
This is gonna be a good night.
Damn it, Moxie. This is all your fault.
How is this my fault?
Oh, are we using the truth gas as an excuse to get into the interiority of these two? That would be fun.
Blitz? I can't see you. God, this smells awful.
Again, that's a chunky shift in style. Like, look at that. Look, that all of a sudden we have colored line work. Moxie's character design has, like, his model has changed substantially. I guess that makes sense given that we are in a different space now. Like, we have entered, like, a psychic space, maybe something inside of his head. But, like, look at the way his eyes are rendered in particular. Like, relative to what he usually looks like. This is, like, much more sort of soft and Disney-like. That's interesting. Are we gonna get a musical number?
Blitz? I can't see you. God, this smells awful.
There's something peculiar about the way he's animating here, too. He's fly swatting a lot. So fly swatting is... It's often considered sort of an amateur way to draw, but fly swatting is when rather than foreshorten or like place parts of a character's body in front of other parts, like when you're doing their emoting and stuff, that you just like you put their arms and legs out to the sides. Actually, I wonder if I can find. Can I find a example thing? No, because searching for fly swatting is just gives you a million fucking pieces of clip art of fly swatters. Yeah, no. But it's basically it's the thing that's about to happen. Like, note Blitz's Moxie's posing here, right? Like, note the way that the animator is like putting parts of him in front of other things, like swiveling around the shoulders. Like, and that gives him a lot of depth as a character, right? Like, that gives him a lot of three-dimensionality when things are occluding other things. And we get here. And look at this, like, the thing of, like, he's coughing into his hand, but the hand never goes up in front of his mouth, for example. And the same thing with the arm here. Like, there's attempts at foreshortening, but instead of foreshortening into the screen, the arm just sort of breaks and goes off to the side rather than really like sort of facing the palm towards the screen itself. And as he's emoting here, again, there's this like the arms are just like kind of out to the side without ever really overlapping the character. Right? And it flattens him a bit. What's interesting, on the other hand, though, is that this is animating on ones, which is... Right? 1, 1, 1, 1. Animating on ones and twos. So the frame rate has gone up substantially, which makes it look a lot smoother. And, like, really, like, there's also, like, some good animation going on here. It's just, I'm confused about the fly swatting. Like, maybe it's a stylistic choice. Again, we're entering clearly some kind of different stylistic space. Maybe there's a point to it. But, interesting.
Blitz? I can't see you. God, this smells awful. What's that music? Is that you? Is this a prank? Because I swear to
It
Satan...
is no prank, bitch.
Wait, this is where that fucking audio's from? I've seen it all over fucking TikTok. Oh my god.
Prank, because I swear to
It
Satan...
is no prank, bitch.
Hey! Why do you sound like that?
Because you, my precious little bitch boy,
Stop it,
are
sir.
tripping balls.
No, what? How could this be? I've never tried acid shrooms or DMT. It's a bad trip. Oi, Gavalt! Of course, Blitz, this would be your fault. My lungs are full of honesty. Would you promise me?
Oh yeah, like, okay, now it's becoming very, very explicit that they've swapped over into, like, a Disney animation. So that's, okay, so that was definitely a stylistic thing on purpose. I'm still not a fan of the fly swatting. That's been happening kind of a bit too much in this sequence. Like, there's still some good posing, right, happening.
Bitch.
Hey! Why do you sound like that?
Because you, my precious little bitch boy,
Stop it, sir.
Because
Oh yeah, animating on twos and ones all the way here. That's why it looks so fucking smooth. And like this, all of this like soft glow shit, that is very like, it's not really the way that Disney movies are rendered, but it's the way we remember them, at least in part because VHS had a tendency to blow out colors a little bit like that, especially on like old CRTs with like glow, because like the way CRTs work is that they fire a photon beam at a phosphor that then literally glows with light, and that created like a lot of light bleed and a lot of glow effects. That's sort of, when we think back on what Disney movies looked like in the 90s, oftentimes we're not thinking of how they looked when we saw them in the cinema. We're thinking, how did they look when we watched them 468 billion times on VHS in the comfort of our own home on CRT televisions. And there, they had a tendency to look very sort of soft, focused, glowy like this.
precious little bitch boy,
Stop it,
are
sir.
tripping balls.
And also, yes, I completely see the fucking Phantom of the Opera thing that they're doing here. Of course I do.
No, what? How could this be? I've never tried acid shrooms.
A little bit of perspective trickery here. Very nice. That's also like a very classic animation thing. You see how the proportionality of Moxie's size relative to the environment, relative to the things that he's going past. He's not really obeying the laws of perspective as he's walking up the stairs here, but it looks right. Like, it feels right in camera. And so we forgive it. And that's just well managed, because like that's actually a really fucking difficult thing to do when you're doing like a shot on a background piece like this, right? Like, because like he's animated essentially over the top of the background. The background itself is static and does not change relative to the motion of the camera or how far pushed in it is. And so the animator has to very carefully manage his size and proportionality to make sure that as the camera is pulling back to sort of simulate the idea of a camera, like if this was a 3D shot, right? Like the camera would be down there with him, pointed in on him, and then it would track backwards as he's walking up the stairs. They're not doing that here. They're tracking digitally across like a flat 2D background, and the animator is doing a really, 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 really careful job, like really careful, of managing Moxie's size and his proportionality so that it doesn't look weird that he got all the way up here in like 2 steps, and like that his size increased so much relative to his environment. That's really well managed, like, because the perspective is actually a lot deeper than the character animation lets on. But that's really well managed. Like, that's just camera trickery, and that's one of the things about animation is, like, you don't have to do it accurately. You have to do it in a way that it feels right to the audience, right? Like, and there's a difference between those two things. Sometimes doing things accurately so that they look realistic or correct is actually the wrong way to do it. 3D animators know this. Like, when 3D animators animate, they are animating to the camera, right? Like, they will fuck with perspective, they will fuck with proportions, they will fuck with anatomy in any which way that is necessary in order for the shot to look right in camera. And the same thing is true to a lesser extent for 2D animation. Like, if you go behind the scenes on 3D animation, like walking animations, characters holding things into the camera, oftentimes their arms outside of the camera lens will be horribly distorted in order to achieve a certain kind of depth of field or a certain kind of composition of the shot that the animator wants, even though it's physically impossible for the character as they are rendered, right? You always cheat to the camera, like in animation. That's a big part of the skill set that you have to learn, is how to cheat to the camera, how to like make something look right even though physically, realistically, it simply isn't right or can't be done. That's what animation smearing is, by the way. Like, on a fundamental level, that's cheating to the camera. Like, characters don't distort like that, but if you do that little distortion, the motion looks smoother in practice. And that applies to, like, managing the proportionality of characters and backgrounds as well. And it's really difficult, and I'm genuinely quite impressed with how the artist handled it.
No, what? How could this be? I've never tried acid shrooms or DMT. It's a bad trip. Oika Vault. Of course,
Oika
this
Vault.
would be your fault. My lungs are full of honesty. Would you promise me that you won't judge?
Yes, bitch.
Not trying to divulge too much, but I'm in too deep. So first of all, fuck you! This is just typical. Well, two can play at this game of dismay, cause if you're here causing frustration, I'm torturing you in your hallucination.
Oh, we're swapping over to a different style of thing.
If your orders are as nonsensical as a sun tanning bed.
Interestingly, he's dressed as a clown. Oh, circus. Are we going back to the circus, Blitz? Ha ha.
Out on the cold rainy porch of a fresh April shower.
Why are you talking like that? What the fuck does that even mean?
I am simply speaking Satan's plain English. Perhaps you should crack open a dictionary sometime, and then maybe you could understand half of the frivolous things I carry on and on about on my steady life.
Okay, so Mox is trapped in like a Disney musical fantasy, sort of inspired by Phantom of the Opera and all that stuff. And Blitz is in a color vortex of, like, digitally mediated, crackling reality.
Why do you hurt me so?
I know.
Why must you push
my friends away?
Why does it seem like a recurring thing that you alienate with your toxic routine?
I don't know. Eventually, everyone
Because
goes.
you're thoughtless and cruel and you'll end up alone. Admit, my dear boss, you don't know what you are doing half the time, and you depend on me and the missus to manage your foolish flights of fancy.
I don't need you. I can do this shit on my own so easily. But you don't want to do things alone, Lizzo. You tried the solo act. It didn't work out so well.
Oh, hey! Fizz, right? Not Frizz, Fizz. Who's animated, like, in a class, like, really sort of emulating the, not really, like Disney cartoons never in a million years ever looked like this. They did not have this kind of three-dimensionality to them, but he's emulating, like, the sort of style of, like, early Merry Melodies. like rubber hose Disney animation. Not so much Max Fleischer, I wouldn't say. But like clearly, like the way that Fizz's character design is handled here is meant to be reminiscent of that. Right. So that's in black and white. Serpent Guy's in sepia colors.
But you don't want to do things alone, Lizzo. You tried the solo act. It didn't work out so well. Yet you still shove away anyone who gets too close until they resent you for being a selfish, shitty shit.
Heaven.
Are you afraid to love people, Blitzy?
Heaven, huh? Okay, the implication here being that Blitz maybe has a little bit more affection for Stolas than he wants to let on. Interestingly, that in Blitz's mind, the steps ascending up to Stolas specifically are literally the stairway to heaven. Also interesting that he seems to conceptualize all these things as something muddy, something cloying, something that covers him and sticks to him and constrains him and pulls at him and like slows him down. Like glue, like the people around him are a kind of glue that slathers onto him and that he has to work very hard to escape. And again, from that perspective, like certainly we see that with Succubus lady from episode 3, can't remember her name. We see that with them, but then the stairway to heaven becomes this thing that Bennett, like, that isn't just grease and goop, like this almost like a possibility of escaping this insubstantiality for the chance of something solid, something real, something that actually has substantiality, where he's not slipping constantly, but it's still like a climb, it's still a struggle. Huh. And then as the feather hits his arm, a chain, a golden chain specifically, which again, not something that's slimy, not something that sticks to him, but something that captures him.
I believe your subconscious is trying to tell you that you simply cannot fathom proper intimacy, but also craving as well. It's rather unfortunate, sir, considering it's often how you treat those who stand by you, such as myself.
Are you worried I may have enough of it one day as well?
Stop fucking talking, all of you!
Right, so taking that backwards, Moxie conceptualizes this conversation, this interaction, as the dramatic duet of a musical, right? The confrontation between the hero and the villain, and specifically that Blitz is being conceptualized as the Phantom of the Opera here, like someone who was profoundly damaged, and whose cruelty, who's acting out, whose behavior is motivated by this profound feeling of being hard done by, of being alone in a world that never shows any kindness to him, and someone who just needs someone to reach out to him, right? That seems to be how Mox sees Blitz a little bit. Like, at the same time as he resents him and is pissed off at him, he also seems to see Blitz as this pitiable, like, again, sort of interpreting from the imagery that's being used here, Blitz is a pitiable figure who's hiding, like, his pain behind a mask, and who needs someone to show him kindness and reach out to him, which might be why Mox sticks around, right? Because he sees him as a sort of Phantom of the Opera type of character, who calls him bitch, 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 right? Who just will never call him anything else. So the imagery here is very interesting, right? Like this, especially his relationship with Stolas, that he simultaneously conceives of Stolas as something that cleans up all the murk and mess and muck of his life, but also something that's gonna like put a chain around his neck and use him as a toy, right? Like as a servant, as a slave. So there's this sense both that he sees Stolas as his possibility of escape from the mess that he's in, but that it's a gilded cage. That he's also very afraid of investing any deeper into this because, well, he's an imp and that's a prince of hell. And, you know.
Often how you treat those who stand by you, such as myself.
Also very funny that in Blitz's imagination, Moxie is cross-dressing because, you know,
Are you worried
theater
I
kid.
may have enough of it one day as well?
Stop fucking talking, all of you!
And then we undercut the seriousness of everything we've just been through by cutting to the two characters looking silly. Again, the golden feathers are at least partially associated with Stolas. Also, I'm not, like... Do I need to comment much on this to sort of like point out how gorgeous it fucking is? How much do I need to say here that isn't painfully obvious just to look at it? Like, the animators are going fucking beast mode here. Like, they're really going fucking hard. I don't know 100% that I'm a fan of, like, the soft alpha glow thing that they're using all around everything. Again, much like with motion blur, I think it makes the image a little bit too indistinct, especially with the weird aliasing that's been on the line work for this episode. But like the effects animators especially are going absolute beast mode, rendering out these psychoscapes and managing the color schemes. Because again, where Blitz has this, he has this gray goop world, right? This, and he still conceptualizes himself as the clown from the circus, I suppose. He has, like, his world, his internal world is this gray, indistinct, sludgy, flowing, cloying, impossible mud world, right? That from which he's straining to escape all the time. And the sparks of color that he gets are from other people, but they just mess things up more. They make things even more indistinct and hard to see. Compare and contrast that with Mox, who seems to have like a much clearer internal world, but one which is, well, Disney-fied. It's cartoony, right? He sees the world not as it actually is out in like, his internal world doesn't reflect the real world out there any more than Blitz's does. It's more concrete. It's more specific, right? But it's still a distorted view of reality, right? Where he sees things through the lens of a Disney movie, where things can be solved with a song, right? Perhaps, again, if we sort of take Moxie as autism-coded, like, this could also reflect, like, his internal idea of, like, that there's supposed to be a certain narrative structure to things, right? Like, that things are supposed to go a certain way, like a confrontation with a villain is supposed to look and go a certain way. And that he sort of internalized these things from his hyperfixation, right? Like from his special interests. That's a way. Again, I don't want to push too hard on that because I am neurodivergent, but I have ADHD, and that's not the same thing. But you could read it that way, and I'll leave it to actual autistic people to sort of take that reading further. And then compare and contrast with Blitz's internal world, which is so muddy and so colorless, and then like this glowing, gorgeous, golden stairway up to Stolas, like, is a distinctly different space inside of him, but one that he's also afraid of, right? And it all swirls together. It all swirls together into this confounding nexus of chaos, right? And again, the golden feathers are associated with Stolas, They're covering him up. They're trapping him, tying him down. And it's that thing of like, even if he desires it, even if he kind of wants it, it's also something that strains against his soul. The idea of being covered, clocked down, constrained like that.
Why, Moxie, why have you held your true feelings inside?
I am scared of rejection.
Why, Moxie, why?
And I do like... I do like it's a good cross cut, right? To go from like this psycho surreal like internal hellscape of being trapped and constrained, like this is like loud scream with demon teeth to into why Moxie, why I am scared of rejection. It's like it also sort of paints the picture that there's a gulf in severity between the issues that these two people have, right? Like that they both have issues, but maybe Blitz has slightly more psychological turmoil going on, while Mox maybe sees things in a slightly...
Why, Moxie, why have you held your true feelings inside?
I am scared of rejection.
Why, Moxie, why do you have Millie put it in your butt?
It gives me an erection.
To hide, we accept your true feelings, so promise me
That I can do
to be true. The world is your anus, so peg it with honesty. I've been a jackass, it's true.
You've been a jackass,
But
it's
soon
true.
as we're back at...
You motherfuckers. You bastards. You actual sons of bitches.
I've been a jackass.
Okay, different. So, the environment here is three-dimensional. Blitz and his cloak seem to be 2D animated. Of course, Moxie is as well. And you can see the differentiation in frame rates, right? Like, you can see that the background moves while the characters don't. So the background is moving on ones, right? Like, it's moving on every single frame. The characters are animated on twos, and it looks so fucking smooth. Like, holy fucking shit, come the fuck on. Again, this is a quiet flex. It really is. Like, this is not something that you'll see in like a fucking Sakuga compilation or whatever, but this to me is Sakuga. Not the 3D rotation of the camera around the organ scene is like relatively trivial, although there's a lot of work that's gone into building this 3D environment in a way that meshes with the 2D models really, really well, like especially in terms of the way that it's textured. But managing the rotation on like the cloak, on his arm, on his horns especially, like those things must be motherfuckers to rotate in 3D space. As we're sort of swinging around here and keeping him aligned with the bench, keeping the cloak aligned with where it's supposed to be draping down over the steps, you can see a little wobble if you look really close, but this is like, fuck you. You bastards. Like, Jesus. You motherfucker. Like, this is Disney level quality. Like, these are the kinds of shots that Disney, like, especially, like, after the advent of, like, when they really started putting 3D into their movies, like, during the Disney Renaissance, right? Like, for some of the more complicated and, like, exciting shots, like the ballroom scene in Beauty and the Beast, or, especially I'm thinking of the Cave of Wonders escape in Aladdin. This is the kind of little flex shot that they would put in to sort of wow audiences and just to show off a little bit that they could handle these kinds of camera moves, which is something that you'll see them in Hunchback of Notre Dame as well, because that's like before the advent of like full 3D animation, like before Pixar really took off, before 3D animation really became viable as a cinematic medium, sort of on its own. These experimentations with mixtures of 2D and 3D, like Treasure Planet is shot stock full of incredible 2D, 3D mixed media shots. Same thing with Atlantis. But these are sort of like, this is like a real 90s Disney Renaissance 2D 3D mix showing off kind of shot where the animators are really flexing the idea that they can animate characters so well that they fit organically into these three-dimensional scenes. And like the thing is, when you really think about it,
World is your anus, so peg it with honesty. I've been a jackass.
this shot here, what does the camera move add particularly to the emotionality of the scene? Not that much, because all that's really happening is that he keeps playing and singing, and Mox walks up there, and then he sits down, and then they start doing actual character acting. So it's that's also why it reminds me of like those shots from the Disney Renaissance, is that they were sort of just kind of there to look fucking cool for a bit. Like, just like, oh shit, like it's a real fucking 3D camera move, and the characters look like believably placed inside of it. That, oh shit, like it's just there to be visually impressive, right? Like, it's not really there for like complicated storytelling reasons. It's there because this.
It's true.
You've been a jackass,
But
it's
soon
true.
as we're back as us.
Because that looks good as hell. That's why it's there. Right? So it's like narratively kind of pointless, but it's technically very impressive. And I like that a lot.
Selves.
Little broken heart on his forehead there also, by the way, which again, that's how Moxie sees him, right? He's wearing a broken heart on his forehead. Which again, like Moxie has a romantic view of Blitz. Not in this necessarily in the sense of being like romantically attracted to him, but in the sense of considering him through the lens of romance, through the lens of romantic feeling. Whereas Blitz, his internal world is like more, you know, like severe psychological breakdown or a very bad trip, right? Which is interesting.
I will be a better friend than I was before.
Be better at speaking my mind. And together we can begin to become fine.
Lovely little thing. Okay. Clearly, like, there's a reason that they changed the cast for Has Been Hotel to be a bunch of Broadway stars. Like, meaning no disrespect to the voice actors here. I think also it's intentional that this is not like the most beautiful duet ever in the history of mankind. It's like, yeah, because it's Moxie like singing with Blitz inside of a fever dream, right? But you fucking see that, again, like, multiple animators probably played lead on Mox here, and I think there's a different lead animator working specifically on these couple of shots, I would think.
Better friend than I was before.
Be better at speaking my mind.
Because you see that? You see the little... you see the little remnants of, like, sketch lines on Mox's character that they've left in. I think this is an intentional move. I think they did that on purpose because, like, those are the sketch lines that are left behind when you're doing like 2D hand-drawn animation on paper, right? They don't need to be there if you're doing this digitally, which they are. This is a digital production. So either, and this sort of depends, like, did they get... So either this is an deliberate affectation where they decided to inject like these fake sketch lines over the top of the character animation to sort of give the verisimilitude of like classic hand-drawn 2D animation, or this is, or they just, the simpler answer, I suppose, is that no. Someone hand animated this in 2D. They got someone. Did they? Am I about to find out when I look at the credits that they had guest animation done by like fucking Glenn Keane or someone? I can't imagine Glenn Keane. They could get Keane for this. It also doesn't quite maybe look like his style. Although on the other hand, I haven't really. Like, did they get, like, fucking Tom Bancroft or James Baxter or some motherfucker, like, who works traditionally to, like compose out this scene, and then, like, rather than fully clean it up digitally, they preserve, like, the sketch lines? and like just did the digital coloring over top of that in order to like really preserve the feeling of the animation. Because again, like, look, this is very good technical animation. Again, it seems like a very simple thing, like the character's just singing, right? Who cares? But notice the rotation that is happening with his head, right? Like which is also noticeably a lot more spherical even than it was at previous points in this like dream Disney sequence. Right? You see that subtle rotation as Mox turns his head. The way that like the eyebrow kind of leads up into this motion here. Classic Disney shit. Like, or not necessarily Disney, but like turn of the century American animation style. And like the rotation, that subtle, bit by bit, piecemeal rotation as he does the curve, right? Like he go, ah, like he swings his head around like that, and you see that. You see the subtlety of the way that the horns are rotating around his head. As he's doing that, that's like, look at that. Look at the smoothness of that. Like this is one of those things like this is a motion that's relatively trivial to do in 3D, right? Because you just tell the model to rotate at a particular rate, at a particular motion. It is non-trivial to do it in 2D. Because there you have to render the three-dimensionality of these things, the smoothness of the rotation by hand. And as a human being, unless you spend like fucking Richard Williams amount of time doing that, you can't make it look as smooth and perfect as 3D. Like, it simply can't happen. And that is good. That is one of the things that gives 2D animation its unique expression, its unique feeling. 2D animation feels different to look at than 3D animation because these three-dimensional motions can't be rendered mechanically perfectly, but they are rendered with a really particular kind of feeling that 3D animation simply can't replicate. It's the imperfections that make it. And this is fucking gorgeous. Like that little rotation of the head, right? Because unlike the 3D shot where the characters are tracking within like the rotation of the 3D shot, which is like, that's impressive on a technical level, absolutely. This is not like that kind of sort of oh, we're showing off like the cool 3D camera rotational tech. This is, we need the character to emote in a way that is like slow and deliberate and like a held note that he's holding for a while, because like this is the climax of his emotions. And so rather than simply have him open his mouth and have the note come out and like animate the tongue vibrating or whatever, we're having him like perform the note with a physical motion as well that sort of also embodies like that emotional climax that the character is reaching. And that kind of slow rotation there is a fucking killer. Like, it's you can't do this if you're a hack. Right? That's just the simple fact of it. If you're a hack, you can't do this. I'm an animation hack, right? Like, I can animate things, but I'm a hack, right? Like, I use workarounds, I use shortcuts, I take the easy way out. I just flip the image if I hack my way around these things. Because I don't have the technical skill to pull off something like that. This kind of shot, this little motion here, you can't do it if you're a hack. There just isn't a way to bullshit your way around it. You have to know exactly what the fuck you're doing. And whoever animated this shot knows what the fuck they're doing. They know it deeply. Also, just the way they use like the volume of the lower jaw, right? As like he finishes the note and the lower jaw comes up. Like, pay attention to the way that sort of propagates through the whole head, right? There's that little that little thing on the, and like, because right now the head is stretching, right? Like, we're doing squash and stretch. The head is stretching, and then as he finishes the note, it's gonna compress back into a more coherent form, and then like fall down towards the conclusion of what he's doing. This is someone who knows exactly what the fuck they're doing. Also, the way they manage his teeth, right? Because lots of Has-Been Hotel and Helluva Boss characters have, like, jagged teeth, right? Like, they have shark teeth. And that's, when you're just showing them clenching their teeth, that's very easy because you just do zigzag, 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 zigzag. And it doesn't really have to be consistent with, like, the position of teeth in an actual mouth. But this animator is, like, doing a really consistent, solid job. Like, the way the teeth part here, right? They come together as he closes his mouth, closes the note, and then the way they come apart, like, so gently and so perfectly, like, cheating to the camera, right? Like, you can see the way that it's, like, we're cheating the way that they recede into the gums and moving them over a little bit, but just, like, when they need to fit together, the physicality of that, right? The way they open more over here than they do over here because the jaw is opening a little bit asymmetrically, right? It's a little bit tilted against each other. Like, come the fuck on. Come the fuck on. Fuck you. Like, God damn you. You son of a bitch. Also, speaking of differentiated animation timing, right? We're animating on 2s here. Both characters are animated on 2s, but they're animated on alternating 2s, right? So every single frame that you advance, something on frame is moving, even if not each individual character, and that helps. If you think of, like, early Disney animation, like the early Merry Melodies. Let me find one. Actually, this is much fucking easier to explain if I actually put it on screen. I'm gonna get copyright claimed to motherfuck. I don't need the openings and closings. I need a Merry Melody. Preferably one that isn't incredibly racist. Because a lot of them were racist. Oh, those are the end cards. Damn it. Give me an actual Merry Melodies. Especially one of the... Wait, no, Merry Melodies, that was Warner, wasn't it? Silly Symphony is what I'm thinking about. The Merry Melodies was Warner. I'm thinking of the Silly Symphonies. This one should do. Right, if we frame by frame our way through this, you can see the characters are animated on, like, 2s, right? But every single character moves on exactly the same timing. Everything in frame moves at exactly the same time. And especially in the older Merry Melodies, like the big crowd scenes that they're so fond of, right? Everything moves on exactly the same timing. Everything moves at exactly the same time. And that was spectacle back in the day, like to have a big scene where everything is moving like this. But it also often looks very mechanical in the way that it's put together, right? It often ends up looking quite stiff in the way that it's put together because everything is moving mechanically on exactly the same timings. And one of the ways you can alleviate that is by doing this. You have the characters animated on 2s, but each character is animated on their own timing, which sort of separates them from each other so that they're not, like, mechanically linked at the hip that way, and that gives them... It creates a different sense of expression in the characters as they move.
I will be a better friend than I was before.
Be better at speaking my mind, and together...
Right? You can see how they don't feel as mechanically interconnected the same way that, like, the old Silly Symphonies characters were. And that's just like one effect of, like, using these differentiated timings where characters move on different frames. And it also helps, like, to the eye of the observer. It also smooths things out because something is moving on every single frame. That's almost like the whole frame is animated on 1s, right? Like that it sort of gives a little bit of that feeling.
To become fine.
Try one.
Yeah, dorks. But okay, yeah, I see why people were sort of expecting me to go long on this one, and clearly I am, because we're an hour and 14 minutes in for this one. That was very, very technically impressive. Both of them. And very interesting, like the way the imagery was handled with Blitz especially, I think was very informative about, like, oh, again, I think it's very informative about his character. It sort of depends on whether or not that is ever actually borne out with his behavior in the rest of the show, right? Like, it's the thing of like, oh yeah, you can have these like deep dive into the character's psychology that reveals like the way that he feels constrained and like trapped and held down by all of his attachments, and he's really anxious about like being trapped in the relationships that he has. Yeah, cool. But like that does have to come through in his behavior in some way. Like when, and this is inevitable, when Blitz just goes back to throwing around like misogynistic insults and dick jokes and all of that nonsense. This was a very cool sequence, but it needs to pay off in his characterization somehow down the line, right? Like it needs to show somewhere in his personality. Like we need to get some sense that this insight, like not in the sense that like he has to turn to camera and say, I did this because I have attachment issues, but in the sense that as an audience we have to be able to take the knowledge that we have gained, the insight that we have into Blitz's mind that no one else in the show has, and be able to interpret his behavior through it and see something else, right? Like see something clearly in evidence, even if the other characters in the show don't perceive it, right? His behavior towards other characters doesn't have to meaningfully change, but the way that it's framed and the way that it's presented, I think, like, if you're doing a sequence like this, in order for that to be meaningful, it has to change something about how his actions come across to us, right? And that means there has to be a change in the framing and presentation of those actions. You can't just keep presenting him as a silly joke gremlin who makes jokes all the time. You have to have little flashes of something more real come through for us, the viewer, even if other characters in the series aren't privy to it. In my opinion, anyway.
Do you remember what you said to me after my first day with the company?
Not really.
I remember. You told me I did a good job and that you were proud to work with me. I feel like you wanted to say something more judgmental, but you said that because I needed it. And it helped.
Look, I'm hard on you because I know what you're capable of, Mox. You care too much about what everyone thinks, except for me, because, you know, my opinion is correct, but just keep doing a good job. Okay? You shoot and kill good, you escape things easy, you can be strategic and cold-blooded when you need to, and don't expect any more compliments. I'm maxed out.
Thank you, sir.
You know my name. Use it.
Thanks, Blitz.
Like that, for example. You know my name, use it, right? Which Blitz is delivering as a sort of annoyed, like, stop being cringe, you little shithead. He's delivering it in that way. But like that he's like, no, actually call me by my name. That's a sign of intimacy, right? Like, that's a sign of, yeah, like that. Very good.
There's my Millie!
Impressive work, Mills. How'd you get here all by yourself? Looney!
Get your asses out here before more fuckers show up!
You dipshits with your fucking ninja swords. They have guns. You know how this is gonna go. Very much a Kill Bill kind of situation with these motherfuckers that's sliding in, doing their little ninja poses. Oh, man.
Okay, I've had one too many emotions for today, guys. Let's fuck these fuckers up! Bye, sweetie. Hey, Mills.
Hey, Liz! Just one sec!
Do you need a gun or anything?
Nah, I'm good.
How about some water?
Sure. Thanks, Blitz.
No problemi, Millie Billy.
Who wants some quality time with Daddy?
Good God, why are we only using weapons from Japan's Edo period?
Hey! The Edo period was badass, and you know it!
Damn it, you're right.
Hey, Mox! Oh, wow. Really going for the dick there, ain't you? Here, I got it for you. Now hold this. Oh, yeah! Getting hard!
Okay, I'm gonna pause here. I was just enjoying it. I didn't want to stop and comment on it. So, yeah, no, okay, they're flexing. Like, here again, we're just flexing. So, and again, this is very well done, like, from a production standpoint. Because, like, this is the thing about Helluva Boss and its fucking tone problems. Because it has tone problems. I am gonna say that, like, that the constant ping pong, like, back and forth between completely different tonalities that this show has, it is a problem with the show, right? Like, because it leads to episodes like Cherub, which are like, the fuck's the point of any of this? Because that seems to be an episode from a weekly filthy gag and joke show that only does filthy gags and jokes and doesn't have anything more substantial on its mind. And then you get this fucking episode, which is like an episode from a show that's filthy and has lots of gags, but which has something on its mind, which has like serious questions about the interiority of the characters in mind, which has like strong artistic ambitions for like what these characters can be and who they should be and where they should go. Which, again, given that this episode is so big and so elaborate, given that they clearly, I mean, my guess would be that they got some guest animators in for these sequences. My guess would also be that there's some outsourcing going on, and that might be part of the reason why we get this weird jagged, like, it might be just like a file format incompatibility thing, or something about when they compress the video down from whatever high resolution print that they're working with on their computer and converted it into a file format. Like, all kinds of shit can happen there. What was I saying? Right, the tone problems. The tone of Helluva Boss is all the fuck over the place, right? And that's, again, it's like with Has Been Hotel, right? Like, what I said about that show is that if it's the show for you, this is a show that matches your sensibilities, your interest, if you are the kind of, like, religiously traumatized theater kid with daddy issues that the show is pitched squarely at, or just, like, the weird fucked up animation enthusiast like me, it's gonna be amazing for you. Like, for some people, a show like Has Been Hotel is gonna save their fucking life. Like, it's gonna show them something important that they need. Helluva Boss is kind of the same way, in that sense of, like, it is gonna be this is profoundly alienating to a lot of people. Like, a lot of people in the audience are gonna see this tone whiplash all over the place and the quality whiplash all over the fucking place, which is another thing, right? Like, the animation quality in this show is also all over the fucking place, intentionally so, because, like, sometimes they just go, hey, let's do this fucking cool thing, hell yeah, boom, and they just go off on one, and they don't have, like, a corporate overlord to tell them, no, you can't waste all that money on doing these impressive sequences for just this one episode. What are you doing? That's inconsistent for the product, and that raises, like, they don't have that there, right, in the same way. Which is where Has Been Hotel, like, generally speaking, is a much more visually consistent show in the way that it's put together, but also much less experimental, much less ambitious in places. And the point I was trying to get to is that the show has massive tone problems, but it does have a good sense of how to manage, like, the tonal quality of episodes within themselves, because we've just been through these, like, psychological, weird, freaky, experimental animation, like high quality Disney nonsense, like weird imagery sequence, and like emotional truth and reality, and like the characters relating to each other and being sweet with one another, and like, and all of that. And then at the end of that, they kind of go, yeah, okay, but the tone of the rest of the show is like, now we need some fucking catharsis, right? Like the characters have been disempowered for the whole episode. They've been sort of like trapped in a room together. There's been this tension of like, oh, can Moxie and Luna like get to Millie and Luna get to them in time before Moxie and Blitz are exposed to something horrible, blah blah blah. Now we just get to have fun. Now we just get to have our catharsis. And again, in a show with like that's like where they need to answer to shareholders, where there's a board of directors or whatever, and there's executive producers and motherfuckers who can sort of interfere with this shit, you would never have a fucking catharsis scene that's this fucking long, that's just this fucking self-indulgent, that is so fucking like yeah, no, let's just fucking murder a fuck ton of people in cool ways for a while, right? Let's just do that and revel in the violence and the brutality of it and just like have fun. That would have been cut down to a substantially shorter length. That's less self-indulgent and less expensive to produce, but because it's independent animation.
Looney!
Get your asses out here before more fuckers show up!
Looney!
Get your
Again, like, this feels like there's a different lead animator work. Like, I like the expression work that's being done on her in this little dialogue scene here. But this feels like there's a different animator working on her here than was working on her, like, during the infiltration sequence. I could be wrong, right? Like, but it feels a little bit that way. Again, there is some stylistic inconsistency within the show, right? Like, and quite a lot of it, in fact. And again, if you are not the target audience of this, if this is not the shit that is pitched at you, like, I've seen people say that shows like Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel are fucking unwatchable, and I'm not gonna tell them that they're wrong, because, like, for some people, they're gonna be, right? Like, I already went off on the thing with the interrogation scene that, like, this shit is a little too smug, a little too full of itself. This feels a little bit like the writers kind of jerking themselves off with how clever they're being with their dialogue. And that's alienating, right? Like, that's the kind of thing that could get me to stop watching a show because I get tired of listening to it. But it also has, you know, all of this shit, right? It has all of that besides. It has horny Snake Man having, like, these weirdly erotic, like, choking out sequences with the characters in one episode just because it's got the fucking Walking Dead guy to voice him. Yeah, and this is the thing I do like. This is the thing about, like, the fucking Spindle Horse Productions thing, is that it's cringe, right? Like, and I mean that positively. It is extremely earnest expressions of very personal fixations and likes and enjoyments, in a way that, again, you wouldn't get this from corporate media. Like, you don't get that from corporate output, because corporate output would never take those risks. It would never subject itself. This is one of the things that's the problem, like, that many people identify with Marvel nowadays, is that Marvel is so relentlessly, religiously focus tested and smoothed and sanded down and polished to the lowest common denominator that there's not a hint of sincerity anywhere left in it, right? Like, a lot of the time, like, the movies sort of, like, it's the fucking, they fly now, they fly now, they fly now. It's that joke, right? Like, it's that fucking vibe. It's that smug, self-ironic, rolling its eyes at its own premise, like, thing of, like, yeah, of course this is silly. We don't take it seriously. You shouldn't take it seriously. This is dumb. Haha. It's dumb. You're smart for noticing that it's dumb. Haha. Like, that, like, people sort of credit it to Josh Whedon or blame him for it. He's not the person who did that. Like, that's an attitude that existed in culture long before that. It's irony poisoning. It's Gen X irony poisoning, which has been passed down to millennials. And Helluva Boss is sincerely itself. It is sincerely its own, like, so far, anyway. I've only watched 6 episodes, right? I haven't even watched 6 episodes. I'm not done with this one. You have to give a shit. You have to care a lot. you have to really, really, really be invested, and you have to be brave to a certain extent to make a show like this that is so self-indulgent and wanky, but then also like Phantom of the Opera Disney musical style musical duet sequence where the character says, "Bitch, bitch, bitch, you're tripping balls, bitch," and then weird, fucked up, acid trip psychological torment sequence, and then, oh, let's just have these characters like murder a fuck ton of people self-indulgently without moving the plot anywhere, right? Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, that's the other thing. Again, returning to the thing about like the grounding that a show like this has in Newgrounds culture. This is stickman fighting, right? Like this whole sequence of the characters just doing all this fucking cool shit. That is stick fights, right? Like, you know, stick animation that used to be popular in Newgrounds back in the day with like, especially like stick fighting animations where the characters were doing like incredible, like complex fight choreography and cool anime moves, just beating each other to bits over and over again, but without there being any kind of like narrative or plot or any kind of resolution. It's also very Monty right? Like late creator of Ruby and like one of the big creative forces at the Rooster Teeth for quite a lot of Red versus Blue. He was one of like the great pioneers of one-man animation projects on the internet. And like a lot of the stuff that he produced, like Fighting Fantasy, Master Chief versus Samus, like a lot of what he produced, a lot of what he was fixated on, a lot of what he loved, and that certainly came through in Ruby as well, was these extremely long fighting game inspired anime style action sequences of characters just kicking the absolute ever-loving shit fuck out of each other over and over and over again, doing the coolest moves, the coolest shit you can possibly think of, executing the most badass fight choreographies and the most insane moves over and over again, but to very little consequence to the thing that's actually going on. Like, all just visual spectacle, right? And the criticism I've always had of Monty, and I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, right? Like, this is an artistic criticism, not a criticism of the man as a person, is that at his most self-indulgent, the fight scenes that he created didn't go anywhere. Like, narratively, this was something that turned me off from Ruby in particular, is that it had these incredible visual spectacle fight sequences embedded within it, which like really went fucking hard, but which also didn't move the story anywhere, at least that I could see at the time. Like, and where the characters would beat up on each other continuously for like 45 seconds in the most spectacular combo of moves, and then the other character would just kind of backflip, get back on their feet, and retaliate, and nothing would have happened to them. Like in the way that fighting game characters do, right? Like a fighting game character can be down to 1% of their health at the very edge of death and still fight at 100% capacity as though nothing has happened to them. That vibe. And that sometimes I felt came into conflict with what the narrative of the shows and the stories within which like these fight sequences were embedded. Like, it happened on Red versus Blue as well. Like, there's a sequence I remember specifically with Tex taking on Sarge and Church and I think Griff. Yeah, I think it was them, which is just like this long, incredible fight sequence, very self-indulgent, absolutely spectacular to look at, but also one that just doesn't like. The only thing that sequence establishes narratively is that Tex is a motherfucking badass who can take them all out, like with her hand tied behind her back, which, okay. But then that's the only thing it does, and it establishes that within the first 30 seconds, and then everything after that is just complete self-indulgence that doesn't lead anywhere. Which relates to what the fuck was I talking about? Right. This sequence that's about to follow. None of this moves the narrative very much. It does a little bit. I'll comment on that as I get there. But this is just, okay, we've done all this complex emotional shit. We've delved into who the characters are, and like we've sort of like done these like technically impressive animation sequences. Now let's just fucking do catharsis for a while. Let's just fucking have fun, right? Which goes back to the thing I was talking about with tone problems, is that within, I don't know why any of you people watch these. Like, why are you here? Why are you listening to this? Oh my god. Which goes back to the question of tone problems, where the episode itself is managing its internal tone quite well, even if the show as a whole is whiplashing all over the fucking place, with a tenuous through line in terms of narrative. But the fact that this big self-indulgent, let's just throw everything at the wall, including a lot of human guts, sequence is here to pay off the tension and the catharsis of like this longer, more evolved emotional sequence that leads up to it. That is well judged. That is literally, by the way, that's the only point I wanted to make, is that, hey, it's a good idea that you put this big self-indulgent like stick fighting sequence here after all of this nonsense, because that feels like a satisfying change in pace for the narrative of the episode. That's the only point I was trying to make for the last, I don't know how long I've been talking. I black out sometimes and I don't know what I've been saying. That was the only point I was trying to make. That's all I wanted to say. Anyway, let me press play again. Like, very crazy 88's that shit.
I've had one too many emotions for today, guys. Let's fuck these fuckers up!
As usual, good expressions on Blitz. Love the little pistol spin. I have a weakness for pistol spins. I have a weakness for, like... And it's also... You can see something about, like, the difference in the way that animators handle, like, the doubling and like, the smearing on a pistol spin like that. I find interesting the way that different animators, like, tackle that challenge. This is a very anime little thing. Like, first of all, the chain throw. I'm gonna call that out. That's gorgeous. That is gorgeously handled. The composition of, like, the spiral of the chain, like, whipping around as it enters into frame. Like, see, this is a good use of motion blur. This is where motion blur should be applied, is when something is, like, flying straight into camera, and the motion blur sort of follows, not quite perfectly, but, like, it's at least, like, a radial blur on something that's, like, proceeding out from the center of the thing. Good motion blur. And you can see here also that the animator is taking care to add manual blurring and smearing to the chain itself that sort of works in concert with the motion blur to make that actually look good in a way that it certainly didn't in the earlier action sequence, in my opinion. And then anime flash frame, a real classic style of anime flash frame where you have the star thing in the middle that explodes outwards in like radial circles as Luna catches the thing in mid-flight. And we get a little bit of that bullet time shit. Yeah. And a little bit of self-indulgence in that we get like this flash of sharp gleam across the blade to sort of emphasize how dangerous the thing is that she just caught. By the way, there's going to be some furries who've had like some emotions about this sequence. Let me just tell you, there's going to be some furries who've had some fucking feelings about this. Like the feralness, the violence, the anger. And I say that as a compliment to the way that it's animated. Like, Luna has that fucking werewolf ferocity in her. Like, the foreshortening and, like, the stretching on the way that she's moving here. Look at that leg foreshortening into the screen. Like really just overemphasizing. Again, this is that thing about cheating to camera, right? The room itself is 3D animated, right? Like, it's a 3D model to allow the camera the freedom to swing around the character, and the animator is just focusing on really pushing towards the camera, cheating into the camera with, like, these extreme depth distortions, playing around with, like, Luna, because, like, when you stop the thing and look at her character model here, that's not a particularly good drawing here in this moment, and they do hold on it for a little bit, but all of this is to set up for that, right? Which is an extremely complicated fucking motion that she's doing here, like that little sort of swooping under the blade of the glaive, spinning her hands around. Individual frames don't look great here, but the motion of it, the movement of it, looks immaculate. Like, and they're really playing with her hair, especially. Like, with the hair, with the fur, with the tails. to empower like the movement and motion of Luna as she's doing her thing. Lovely smearing on that character too. Look at that. Like a dog with a stick in her mouth. Yoink. Pushing in hard with the camera, right up on the neck, and then yoink! And again, like, the animator here is not focused on, like, creating perfect anatomical drawings of the character. This is all expression, right? Like, this is all smearing, distorting, fucking around with the proportionality of the character to aid in the feeling of the motion as she's going. And, like, look at that. Gorgeous use of the chains once again here. The way that they spin, like, just the fucking curves and the spin and the motion that's in those chains doing so much to help her movement as well as she's going around. Like, this shot in particular, like, the way that the chains spiral up around her, transitioning into this low shot and then snapping heads off. Like, fuck yeah. Character design note, by the way. These are goons, right? These are goon character designs, which means they are as similar to one another as possible. Uniforms are great for this, right? Like, they're not differentiated from one another. They're not unique, particularly from one another. They are low detail, low individuality, which is, like, is the sort of the signal from the character design to us as the audience that, like, don't worry too much about the interiority of these people, right? These are not characters. These are not people. They don't really matter. They are here to be executed and splattered about for the fun and enjoyment of the watcher, right? Like, that's all they're there for. Don't worry about their families. Don't worry about, like these are actual people with hopes and dreams who went to school and, like, went to college. And this kid was, like, 5 years old once and, like, was someone's son or daughter. Don't worry about it. They are disposable. They don't matter. Our protagonists are the only people who matter. And that's a character design thing, right? Like, that's the character design signaling that to us, so it doesn't feel too weird to watch our protagonists absolutely blender their way through this group of goons. Millie especially is having a lot of fun with the spin on that axe. A really nice, deep, low shot here. And the spin, yoink. And the smears. Again, if you pay attention here, the size of the character relative to the room, right? That she goes from being this size here to being that size over there doesn't really strictly make sense, but it also doesn't matter because we're not really paying attention to that right now. What we're paying attention to is the motion. Especially those spins and smears. Like, especially the little blender trick that she's going to do on some of them. Again, I kind of wish... Like, here, I think the motion blur works a lot better here as well, because it's mostly applied to the background, right? Like, when something is close up in the foreground, we get a little bit of, like, Gaussian blur on it, motion blur on him in the background as things spin around. But mostly, the background is blurred out, the three-dimensional background, while the character animation, for the most part, is clean and legible. Which, again, much better use of motion blur than in that initial sequence. It's so cute, right? Yay! And then the axe over the head and just like, whee! La da da da. It's fantastic. And again, like, it's self-indulgent, right? So we have lots of three-dimensional camera moves just going around the characters, showing guns being rendered at all kinds of different angles. just showing off, just having fun. Gorgeous effects on those fucking gunshots as well. And like, insofar as there is a narrative point here, right? Like, there is a little bit of one. It is this, specifically between Mox and Blitz, that they are together here in their sequence. Like, everyone sort of gets their own sub-sequence here. Like, everyone gets like their own big moment to show off how cool and badass they can be. With Mox and Blitz here particularly, it's the thing that they're working much better together, right? Like, they're handing each other guns, they're covering for one another, they're cooperating, they are in harmony, they are in unison with one another, having gone through like their challenging situation together where they turned on each other, got mad at each other, like admitted to a bunch of lies they told each other. Now they're sort of like reaffirming their relationship by acting in harmony, by acting in unison with one another. Love that swing around him, like transition that into like that big smear of blood, yush, to really complete the spin motion. Like that's insofar as there's thought patrol, really. Insofar as there's a narrative point to it, like that's kind of where it is. Also, a little bit later, that Blitz here in the fight scene very explicitly acts as team dad. Like he puts the fucking backpack over his chest and starts like handing out water and bombs and like, do you need anything, sweetie? Telling Luna that he's so proud of her, etc., etc. Like, it's also about like sort of, again, this thing about diving into Blitz is very scared of his commitments. He's very scared of getting attached to people. But then on the other hand, he's also clearly very attached to these people. He knows them very well and he cares about their well-being. Is the idea of it, but it's being delivered through like an ultra-violence sequence. I still wish there was less motion blur on the characters, but it's fine. Again, some furries having real fucking complicated emotions about this. Well, maybe not so complicated. I think it's mostly just like elation and like gender envy, probably a lot of gender envy, and a lot of joy in seeing like this feral anger and violence getting acted out in that way. And again, I say this absolutely not in any way whatsoever to mock. I say it as a compliment to the animation, that it's managing to like create feelings. Again, like the animators on the show, there are furries on staff. They know what the fuck they're doing. Like, especially managing, because like Luna's mouth especially.
What? I am just so damn proud of you, Looney.
Right, managing the shape and the three-dimensionality of like a dog snout against this like highly stylized flat style. And turning her around like that and like putting the mouth where it can do the most expression for the given shot that we're looking at. Love the little cheek squish here. That's so lovely. It makes her like, there's also the thing of like, they make her look soft. They make her look fuzzy. They make her look furry. They make her look like she is furry to the touch, right? And that is also a skill. That's not something that's just like automatic. It takes effort. Chomp! Yeah, you'll have to excuse me. I don't have that much commentary here. I'm just kind of enjoying myself. Again, whoever's lead animator on Millie, like, really knows how to play with her tail. And, like, use her, like, big round hips sort of as a grounding point for the rest of the character. Especially when you're managing, like, the character relative to... Like, because the axe... In order for the axe to feel like a deadly weapon when it's being wielded, right? Like, when it's moving, it does have to have a sense of weight and heft to it. It can't look like she's waving it around like it's made of cardboard, right? So there are these shots like these where, like, she's resting it on the ground and kind of resting a little bit of her weight on it. And when she picks it up, right... She doesn't just swing it up. She kind of has to get down low, do some big rotations, and then like she follows the momentum of the axe through with what she's doing. That's what makes the axe feel big and momentous and powerful. This fucking blender move is so fucking fun.
Do you need a gun or anything?
Again, the hip. Like, you see how, like as she gets up from here, like, the hips, boop, are like a grounding centerpiece that allows, like, allows her torso and, like, her whole upper body to just kind of swivel around it. It's really well done. It's very good graphic design for the character. The fucking blender move. Lots of circles and swirls.
Water.
Sure. Thanks, Flint.
How about some water?
Sure. Thanks, Flint.
Team Dad. Love the expression work there. She looks so satisfied and happy.
No problemi, Millie Billy.
Who wants some quality time with Daddy?
And now Blitz gets his sequence. With a little hammer space attached to the front of his to the front of his chest. Ooh, that explosion was really nice, actually. Look at that. That's almost like a Studio Trigger kind of thing, like having the little flashes inside of the explosion. You'll see that all over the fuck in Kill la Kill. Like that's absolutely everywhere. Gorgeously animated explosion, that.
Good God, why are we only using weapons from Japan's Edo period?
Which, again, dorks. Why are we only using weapons from Japan's Edo period? 'Cause you're fucking dipshits. You mall ninjas.
Hey! The Edo period was badass, and you know it!
Damn it, you're right.
I do also appreciate... whoop! That little cartoon whoop effect. Right? I do like the silliness of that.
Hey, Mox! Oh, wow. Really going for the dick there, ain't ya? Here, I got it for you. Now hold this. Oh, yeah! Getting hard! Hold this, motherfucker!
Pussy Destroyer, really? Again, a really nice explosion.
Oh, crumbs. Is everyone okay?
Woo! How's that for demon scum?
Self-destruct button?
Oh, shit! Come on, fam, let's blow this toxic...
They would be the kind of dorks to have that.
Oh, shit!
1, 2, 1. And this little bit is animated on ones for some reason. Why did they do that? Okay, I mean, sure. How did those two dipshits survive?
Oh, shit! Come on, fam, let's blow this toxic joint.
You have a portal to hell.
Quick, the book!
Shit, I can't read the spell in this light. I can't see dick.
Well, shit. Looks like we milked this weapon tit dry, and now we're out of badassery.
You demons aren't going anywhere now.
What? Oh! Oh, I see someone shown up.
Who dare threaten my impish little plaything?
Agent O!
What's the matter, Demon Hunter?
Never seen a real demon before.
Daddy's here. Let's just have a slow look at that. Ooh. Ooh. Those two dipshits aren't worth that. They're not they needed to be better villains to be worth that. Come on. You're wasting that on them? Fucking hell. Like, the way that opens, like, as though those are hands pulling the mouth open from the inside. Oh, that is some good-ass fucking demon character design right there. Oh, look at that. Full animation on 2s on that thing. Full animation on 2s. Like the little leg coming in from behind as it like... And again, the little thing about like animation timings we talked about, where the feathers are falling at a different frame rate than, or on a different timing than the demon is moving. The way that they're using, like, that red interior light of the demon itself, like, almost as though it's, like, swollen with some horrible liquid, or... But then at the same time, it's also emphasizing that it's, like, big and fluffy with those pitch black feathers, and the cracks that sort of spindle over it, like it's lava inside that's threatening to burst out. That is some good-ass fucking demon design right there. And again, the visual effects department, like, all of my compliments to the crew.
Stole it? Well, hold on. How did you know that we needed help?
I have my ways, darling. Are you all right?
Ugh, I'm fine, Stolas.
Good. How the fuck did you get caught by humans? Are you little creatures not being careful up here?
Well, hold on. How did you know that we needed help?
I have my ways, darling. Are you all right?
The little cheek squish. Real love of hands. Like, again, that's the thing about, like, how Stolas touches things. Because that's a big part of his expression as a character. Is that he likes to play with his hands. He likes to touch things. He likes to caress things. Even here, when he's, like, touching the button, it's not just that he, like, squashes it down. It's, we have that little lift, curved finger upwards, and then, flip. Right? It's a slightly more theatrical motion rather than just a practical one. Also a fun detail that Luna especially has trouble reading things in red light.
Well, hold on. How did you know that we needed help?
I have my ways, darling.
Same thing there. Like, as he's, I have my ways, darling. Right? That little curled hand, I have my ways, and then, like, emphasizing the darling with the little flip of the fingers. And then, of course,
Are you all right?
caressing,
I'm fine,
touching.
Stolas.
Good. How the fuck did you get caught by humans? Are you little creatures not being careful up here? You know, if you get in trouble, I get in trouble. We don't want that.
They caught us off guard, Your Highness.
Yeah, you can unclench your bird puss, Stolas. It's not gonna happen again, okay?
Luckily for you, most don't believe the word of the demon-obsessed lunatics. They are seen as kooks. Kooks. Such a silly word. Now, let us all return.
Yes, please. I'd like to get back to the correct hellhole as soon as possible.
Am I going to get any thank you for the rescue, Bitsy?
Well, I suppose you should. Want me to fuck your brains out tonight?
Very much so.
All right, but you're keeping quiet or I'm using those bear traps.
Very good.
Night.
Very much so.
All right.
Give me a kiss, give me a kiss. Nope, you get a hair pull, baby boy. Feather pull, I suppose. Which clearly is also what he wants. But there is a thing of... Again, I'm wondering how much to read into it. That Stolas is explicitly asking for a kiss here. And Blitz isn't quite giving it to him. Which again is that thing of like... A kiss is something intimate and romantic. Which Blitz is still not quite willing to do. Because he still has that thing about feeling trapped, feeling tied down by Stolas' affection. Is that how we're supposed to read this? Not 100% sure, but... the horniness of this. Like, the little... You can see that Blitz knows exactly how to tickle him. Right? Like, you can see that Blitz knows exactly what the boy wants. Physically. Even if he's not quite able to reciprocate emotionally. And I do like the animation on this, like the little tickle, and then the way that, like, those waves of pleasure propagate up his collar. And shake him until he has a little mini orgasm right there.
As you should. Want me to fuck your brains out tonight?
Very much so.
All right, but you're keeping...
And again, it's the thing about, like, how much am I supposed to read into it?
To fuck your brains out tonight?
Very much.
Stolas leans in for a kiss, and you can see Blitz sort of like, that's a little too intimate, right? That the irony that he has trouble with the intimacy of a kiss, but he doesn't have trouble with the intimacy of...
Quiet, or I'm using those bear traps.
That.
Oh, please do.
Right, and now he delivers the kiss, after he has sort of... Now that it's a sloppy makeout session rather than something romantic, right? Good on them.
So what now?
What now? We finally got the evidence we needed to be taken seriously.
Nobody at corporate is ignoring this.
That was not a very good... That was not a very good... villainous laugh. On purpose, clearly, like, because this shithead is a dork-ass loser. But if these guys are going to be recurring villains, again, I'm going to restate my criticism that they need some kind of fucking interiority. Like, a little bit more needs to be with these guys. In order for me to give a shit about them as villain, it's like, because the point here is that, like, these guys are not going to give up. They're going to come back. They're going to be a recurring threat or a problem for the imps. That they're going to keep trying to expose them, right? Like, this threat of being found out when they go to the human world, etc. Again, don't know how much they're going to feature in later episodes, but that's the point of what's being set up here. But I don't give a shit about these two dipheads. Like, Why would I give a shit about them? They don't have any personality beyond being, you know, dorks. They lack a little bit of that interior motivation that makes for good villains, right? And I will say that's a general weakness of the show so far. Like, outside of Stryker, who's interesting. Like, Stryker has some interiority. Stryker has some complexity going on. And, like, whatever Stolas' wife's name is. Like, those characters have some interiority. They have some motivations. They have some, like, there's something to them, right? They have some kind of role. The show isn't really got a lot going for it when it comes to villains. Like, villains that are interesting, villains that I feel like are worth caring about, villains that have, like, a real relationship with the protagonists, that, like, where they can bounce off each other, or, like, their interactions can meaningfully say something about one another. Not really having that. Like there was the Fizzbot as a sort of secondary antagonist to Blitz, that clearly has some kind of personal relationship with whatever that robot is based on. That was something. Like, that might be interesting, but again, so far in season 1, I'm not seeing any. There isn't a villain, right? Like, there isn't a big bad guy. There isn't a central antagonist. That's fine, but also there aren't any good recurring antagonists. Like, where is this fucking... Where are Imp's Team Rocket at, right? Where are the Team Rockets? Where are, like, the recurring weekly villain who comes back? Where's the Skeletor, right? I really am missing that. And that doesn't mean necessarily, like, when I say Skeletor, I don't mean necessarily in the sense of, like, oh, this is an enemy that we have to have a battle with every week to foil their dastardly scheme. I mean a recurring character who has a specific relationship to the heroes, where, like, their personalities can bounce off of, and, because, like, we don't know those people's names. Blitz and Moxie barely talk to them except to just, like, throw shitty jokes at them for a bit. And their only interaction with the protagonist is to catch them initially, short interrogation scene, and then they never talk again, right? Like, that's literally the extent of it, is that, like, they get interrogated, but after the interrogation scene, no interaction ever happens again between these two dipshits and our protagonists in any meaningful, real way. Because now we're off to, like, mental projection land, then we're having big cathartic action sequence, and lots of explosions. And then finally, like, they interact for, like, 2 seconds where they're like, we have you now because of you, like, the big bag full of infinite guns doesn't have guns in it anymore, I guess, for some reason, or, like, and now we have handguns, which means, but then there's no interaction there because Stola shows up, terrorizes them half to death, really should have killed them, frankly, and then it's like, now we have the evidence we need. We're going to be recurring antagonists later on down the line. Ha, ha, ha. But I can't be arsed to care. Like, I don't care about these guys. What the fuck? Who are dorks? What are they about? What's the point of their organization? What are they interested in? Stola sort of hints at the idea that these are demon-obsessed lunatics that no one believes. But then also, clearly they have resources. Clearly they have a lot of money and a lot of people. Like, a lot of people, well, a lot less people now, but they used to have a lot of people, a lot of budget. They have huge facilities. Like, so what do you mean no one believes them? Clearly there's a lot of people who are willing to believe them. Is like, who are these antagonists? What are their relationship to anything that's happening in the show, and why should I care about them? The show so far has no answers, right? And that's a weakness. It's compensated for by all the other things that the show does have, all the cool shit, all the animation ambition, all the horniness, all the fun of it. But, like, for a show about demons, there sure aren't a lot of interesting bad guys. Now, credits. I don't necessarily have commentary on the credits very much. It's just, if I'm going to spend 2 hours watching a 20-minute piece of web animation, I'm gonna look at the credits and try and like at least see the names of the people who made it. Eric Luttrell and Michael Romeo Ruocco as Agent 1 and 2. Mara Wilson came back. Oh, okay. Additional fight dialogue by... Okay. Revisionist beatboards. Big cast of animators on this one, as there should be. Oh, Ole Christian Luken. That sounds like a Scandinavian name. Again, like, deep compliments to every animator who worked on this, right? Like, I sit here and I do my complaints and I do my nitpicks, but like I said extensively at the end of the previous one, animation like this is a miracle every time. Again, remember to, in your heads, give a lot of credit to the in-between animators, especially on those, like, beautiful, gorgeous 3D rotation sequences and shit like that. In-betweeners are crucial for any of this to work. FX Team heroes. Yeah, they are. Jesus. Cleanup also heroes. Yeah! Holy shit. Holy shit, yes, they are. Fuck me. Like... I really hope they don't crunch too much on this, right? Like that, I really hope they don't, like, put in, like, 15-hour work days to do this. Because this kind of animation is, like, it's physically demanding on the body. Which you wouldn't think so, it's just sitting still and drawing on a tablet, right? But, like, the body doesn't necessarily like the constant, tiny, repetitive motions and, like, the bending over and, like... It can be very, very hard on a person's body to sit for such long hours and draw so much. Because you use muscles in ways that they aren't necessarily, like 100% designed to be used for. Like, repetitive strain injury is just, like... It's... In some places, it's the norm in the animation industry rather than the exception, and that's bad. And it's, like... It's a thing of, like, animation like this cannot be produced without a huge investment of labor. Like, it's simply... This shit doesn't exist without a massive, like, unspeakable amount of man-hours being poured into it. And that can lead to some, like... And this is something, like, I've read articles of interviews with the animators who have worked at Spindlehorse that have alleged that, like, yeah, like, the production situation at that studio isn't always particularly great, right? Like, that the management isn't always... particularly consistent or very well in control of what's going on, and that working hours and workloads can be really inconsistent and unpleasant to deal with. And that's not surprising. Those are the conditions everywhere in the animation industry, unfortunately, unhappily. Like, especially in the Japanese animation industry, it gets fucking rough, but, like, all of the outsourced studios across the world, even the domestic studios in places like the US and the various European countries, working conditions in that industry are tough, and unionization efforts aren't happening fast enough, and aren't happening on the scale that they need to be happening. And I really hope that they, like, I hope that the animators at Spindlehorse unionize. I hope that they unionize. I hope they bargain collectively for their rights and their protections, and that they get treated properly, and that they get the pay that they deserve. Because, like, again, there's no issues I've heard about at Spindlehorse that are unique at all, like, or even particularly exceptional within the context of the industry. It all seems fairly normal for the animation industry, but the animation industry is shit. Like in many ways, it's fucking shit, and it chews people up and spits them out in really brutal ways. That I hope are less present. Like, I hope this is a nice place to work relative to most places. Because it's the thing of, like, yeah, you can call them heroes. You can call them heroes in the credits, and good on you for putting everyone in the credits, I hope. But, like, if they have been through an ordeal that requires you to call them heroes, that speaks to me about mismanagement on the production side, right? Like if they have been pulling double duty or crunching all through the night or like really doing a lot of overtime to sort of make up for time and like really sort of push things over the finish line, that means that production management has committed a series of failures that has led to that kind of schedule crunch. And if management was better about it, if production leads were better about scheduling this shit out and like managing risk factors and all of that, they wouldn't have to crunch so much, right? Like, so I always get a little suspicious about that. Like, I don't, not in the sense that I think it's meant insincerely, but in the sense like whatever situation arose that led you to calling them heroes for the work that they did here, that situation probably shouldn't have happened, and management's job is to make sure that that doesn't happen again, so that people don't have to put in a heroic effort in order to produce these things, that they can just go to work a reasonable number of hours, and then go home and have lives outside of work. Because, you know... Again, like... nothing but praise for the quality of the work here. And also for the sound, like the sound mixing and sound editing is fantastic. This is something that's very, very, like, especially because I'm not really a sound guy in that sense, the way that I'm an animation guy. It's really easy not to notice the amount of sound it takes to make a cartoon feel right. Like a sequence like the dream sequence in the weird fucking hellscape that Blitz was in, that takes a lot of sound engineering and like soundscaping and sound designing to make that sound believable and right and make that feel like you're there with the character. That is not trivial. That's not easy. Same thing with a big fight scene like that, like managing the spatial audio of where all the sound effects are going off and like how they're happening and how loud they are relative to one another. That's a difficult fucking job. One that I have no idea how you do, really. But it's like, it is non-trivial. And so these people are doing a fucking hero's effort as well to make this shit look and like sound as good as it looks. Moxie's bad trip, yeah. The compositing people also deserve... So compositing is... very, very broadly, that's the act of taking different assets and putting them together in a scene, right? So think about the fight sequence. We have all of these rotating camera movements happening in this 3D environment, right? Compositing are the people who are responsible for making sure that the animation that the animators are doing for the characters and the animation that's happening for the way that the camera is moving, that looks good when it's put together, that the color grading is right, that like the proportionality and like everything sort of works out okay. A lot of that is compositing's job, and if they don't do their job correctly, you can tell. So again, like, these people are also putting in serious effort to make this shit work. Additional animation services provided by Chaos Emporium Inc. Right, so they outsourced to an outside studio to sort of get it. That might explain some of the stylistic differences between some of the sequences, is because they were outsourcing to another studio to get it done, which I can understand given the level of everything that they were trying to do here. Honestly, this could probably have been split up into 2 episodes, let's be real. But no, yeah, it makes sense that they would outsource. 3D animation and modeling? Yeah, that makes sense.
This was a mistake. It's a horrible mistake.
Yeah. Fucking hell. Oh, I most replayed the horny sequence. Of course it is. I see you, Helluva Boss fans. I see you. Don't think I don't see you. I'm sure the AO3 tags for this fandom are wild. How the fuck do I sum this up? Yeah, again, like, say what you will, there is nothing else like this anywhere. Right? I guess that's the recommendation, right? Like, that's the big praise, is there is nothing else like this show anywhere. You're not getting this from anywhere. Like, Netflix is not going to make this. Netflix won't produce something like this. Like, even A24 and Amazon don't really produce something like this. They produce something that's aesthetically similar, takes place in the same universe, written by the same people, has a lot of like the same sensibilities, but not a 22-minute episode with a Disney dream sequence and a psychedelic dream sequence and a big three-dimensional, like, bloody fight fest and a demon horror sequence and then a horny gay sequence. Like, you're not getting that from A24. You're not getting that from Amazon. You're not getting it from Netflix or HBO. You're not getting it from Disney Plus. You're not getting it from any of them. Like, this shit like this only happens in independent animation. Like, whatever else Helluva Boss is, it is completely itself. Right? And that, to me, is a recommendation. Not in the sense a recommendation of like, oh, you'll like this, or oh, you will think that this is good. A recommendation in the sense of, you want to see something you're not going to get anywhere else? You want to see something that you will only see here? Well, there you go. Because, again, it's like, franchise movies are like Big Macs, right? I could go to China right now, get a Big Mac. It tastes pretty much the same as it does where I live, right? Tastes pretty much the same in Saudi Arabia. Tastes pretty much the same in South Africa. Tastes pretty much the same in Colombia. Tastes pretty much the same in Indonesia. It's a Big Mac, right? And a lot of entertainment, most media is like this. It's designed to be that way. You only get one Helluva Boss, right? You only get one of this particular thing. And that doesn't mean it's like, oh, that makes it better than everything else. Absolutely not. But it's different from everything else, right? This is the only place you get that. This is the only place you get this, right?
How could this be?
It's the only place where you get this, and then that, and then this. And then that. And then this.
Please do.
Right? Nowhere else are you gonna get that. And for that alone, it's worth... this is my belief. For that alone, it is worth experiencing. Not becoming a fan, not becoming a stan, not like becoming an evangelist or singing its praises to anyone who will listen, but it's worth experiencing. It's worth going to see it and then hating it. Like, if you hate it, if it's not for you, like I said, this can be very alienating. Absolutely, like, hate it, despise it, but do see it, right? Because you're not getting this anywhere else. That's my argument, like, not just in favor of something like Helluva Boss, but in favor of independent media, in favor of someone's weird fucking webcomic, right? Like read more webcomics, honestly. Read more fan fiction, because there you will see much more shit that you will only see from one person, because it's one person's obsessions, sensibilities, wants, desires, fixations that come through. And that's infinitely more worth seeing than, you know, whatever the fuck happens to Captain America in the next one. At least in my opinion. That's what makes it worth spending time on, whether positively or negatively. Because, like, I generally feel very positive about Helluva Boss. I would like people who hate it to also engage with it and, like, express creatively why it doesn't vibe with them. Because I know exactly why this is my shit, right? Like, I know exactly why this is my shit. It's because, like, fucking look at it. It's so fucking cool. But I think it's also good if someone whose shit this isn't, like, sits down and, like, thinks very carefully. Like, because a lot of the... Again, I have tried not to get too exposed to, like, the community thing about it, but, like, it's sort of inevitable that if you are present at all... Like, the TikTok algorithm has figured out that I watch Has Been Hotel and Helluva Boss. It's been starting to serve me sounds and memes and shit from it, and therefore I've also become exposed to some of the discourse. And, like, there is a lot of reflexive dismissal of the thing that, like, is not invalid, right? Like, people say, oh, I find this shit, I find this unwatchable, which is, like, yeah, it would be to a lot of people pretty fucking unwatchable. But where the dismissal doesn't really engage with the text of the thing as it is, but just sort of like, oh, it's cringe. Which is like, oh, okay, what does that mean, though? Because cringe is a feeling inside of you that is being triggered by something that, like, touches on a part of yourself that you don't like. Why don't you like that part of yourself? Or, like, what part of that of yourself is it specifically that's being touched upon? Because I know why it makes me cringe. Like, the interrogation scene, for example. Me sitting there saying, like, come the fuck on, like, this is too smug, this is too self-satisfied. You know why? Because this is a sequence I would have written in a fan fiction when I was, like, 16 to 18. Right? Like, this is the shit that I would have written that I thought was cool. Like, this is the kind of self-indulgence that I would have indulged in. And I know why I don't think that that's good. I know why I think that that leads to bad writing and, like, bad scene structure and, like, it's alienating and unpleasant. I know all of that, which is why when I see it here, I cringe. I go, oh, my fucking God. Like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because, like, fucking hell, you just... because this is the kind of shit that I might have made once upon a time, right? And, like, let's be real, if I was the fucking showrunner or writer for a show like Helluva Boss, I don't know that I would write it any better. And that's another reason why I cringe at it, is because it touches upon something in me that I don't like, and I react against it, right? Like, that's where cringe comes from, fundamentally. So, like, I know why I cringe at this, and I try to engage with it, right? Like, I try to understand why and what it is and where it's coming from, and I try to frame my criticisms through an understanding of this is, like, that this is personal to me and not just, oh, it's bad because I had the feeling of cringe at it, therefore it is bad. And that's the criticism that I see a lot of people make for a lot of media, is like, this made me feel bad, like this caused a sense of discomfort in me, therefore it is bad. And I don't like that very much. Like, there's a lot of anti-intellectualism that lies down that road, that worries me a lot, that people are engaging with, like, that people are okay, that's a rant for another time, but there is a general, like Helluva Boss and Has Been Hotel is one place where it happens, but it's a general trend in culture and media in general, I think, that there is an anti-intellectual movement whose fundamental argument is, this caused a negative feeling in me. Like, this caused revulsion, this caused upset, this caused cringe, this caused sadness, anger, pain in me, and therefore the thing is evil, right? Like, therefore the thing is bad, therefore the thing is poorly made, therefore the thing is immoral, therefore the thing is, like, whatever, right? Which is a bad approach to media criticism, because it's valid to have those feelings. Like in Has Been Hotel, the poison sequence, and, like, the domestic abuse sequence with Angel, I would imagine that could be quite severely triggering to people who have been through this kind of shit in real life, because it is verisimilitudinous, right? Like, it is something that reflects the reality of abuse in many ways, right? And I saw comments from people saying, like, no, yeah, like, that reminds me very strongly of a situation that I've been in, which is why it's perhaps a good idea to provide content warning for those things, which I didn't have on my video file of it. And that's, like, a valid reaction to have. That, like, shit, that triggered some real deep, dark shit in me. That made me very unhappy. That pained me. That brought up a lot of trauma or suffering in me. That's a valid thing to say, but that's not really a criticism of the thing, right? Like, that's not, oh, therefore it is bad. No, like, it's not bad because it brought up those negative feelings, but it's affecting. And the question is, like, when you want to assess whether or not the thing is good or bad, you need arguments beyond just, this caused a feeling in me. Right? You need better arguments than that for any kind of real engagement with media. And sort of old man yells at cloud over here. I do worry a little bit with how much criticism of media I see nowadays that is just purely based on, this makes me uncomfortable, therefore there is something wrong with it. Like, if this was good media, then it would make me comfortable and happy, right? And that applies, like, both to, like real nasty problematics, like media that depicts, like, really ugly, nasty problematic stuff, and just stuff that's horny and juvenile and self-indulgent in the way that Helluva Boss is. It's not enough for you just to observe that you are having a negative feeling about it. You have to understand why and where it's coming from in order to frame an effective criticism. At least that would be my contention. Anyway, that was I sort of went off on one there again, didn't I? Quite a bit. Oh, it's that fucking YouTube bug again. Yeah, that's very annoying. Okay. But anyway, that demon looked fucking good as hell. Oh, fuck me, it's 2.5 hours. Yeah, well, fair enough. It deserved it. Like, it was always gonna take me 2.5 hours, wasn't it? To talk about this and that and this and then this. Yeah, sure, why not? Okay, I think I'm out of things to say now, so bye.